Hello everyone, in today's video we are going to be making the accessories for the Mr. Bunny pattern. There's a heart, an Easter egg, a flower, and our carrot. I'll go ahead and link the video for the bunny's body in the description below so that you can access that. In this video we'll just be making the accessories. So let's get started. Okay, so for today's video, depending on which accessory you're going to use, we have a couple different colors of yarn. All of the yarn here is the Premier Parfait plush yarn. This one is in tangerine and the seaweed salad if you want to match those colors, but we're going to be using an orange and a green for our carrot. Our heart is in the color poppy. Our flower is bubblegum and summer squash. And our egg is a little bit different. It's the chunky pom-pom yarn from Premier, and it's in the electric blue, and then the Parfait plush yarn for the secondary color in bubblegum. Okay, and then we are also going to need a 5.5 millimeter crochet hook, our scissors, a stitch marker, stuffing, and a yarn needle. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and start with our heart. And for this, we're going to start with a magic circle. This is the Premier Parfait plush yarn in the color poppy. And then we are going to be working 4 single crochets into this magic circle. Okay. We'll go ahead and pull our magic circle tight. And on round 2, we are going to be working a single crochet increase into each stitch. So 2 single crochets into each stitch. Remember to place your stitch marker into that first single crochet that you work to save your place. Okay, so after round 2, we should have 8 single crochets worked around. For round 3, we're just going to work a single crochet into each stitch around. So we'll be working 8 single crochets around. Okay. After the end of round 3, this is your first hump of your heart. We can go ahead and just pull up our loop and fasten it off. We're going to be making 2 of these. So you're just going to repeat these same steps again for the second hump, but the second hump, when you end it, you are not going to fasten it off. So we've got our first hump here, and we'll go ahead and just go through those steps again and work our second hump. Okay, so now we've completed both of our humps. Now the second one, remember, we don't want to fasten that one off. So we are going to hold the second hump with that last stitch facing us, grab our first hump for our heart, and we are going to start single crocheting into the next stitch from where we fastened off. So if you can see, this stitch is where it was fastened off, and this is the next stitch here. Okay, so if we hold our yarn into the back, insert our hook into that stitch, grab our yarn, pull it through, and then pull it through those 2. That's our first single crochet connecting our 2 humps. And then we're just going to work a single crochet into each stitch around this first hump. So that's going to be 7 more single crochets. Okay, that's our 7 single crochet into that first hump. This starting yarn, we are going to be using at the end to sew the hole closed between our 2 humps. So we're gonna leave that hanging down in the middle of the 2 humps, in that center spot. We're gonna go ahead and insert our hook into our second hump. This is the stitch that we ended with before. So we're gonna be inserting into this stitch right here. You can see that this one kind of bridges over from that stitch over. We're gonna insert our hook into this next stitch here and work a single crochet and then 7 more single crochets around. Okay, once we have all those worked around, we should have a total of 18 stitches around those 2 humps. And next we're going to be doing a single crochet, 2 single crochets, and then an invisible decrease. Okay, so our next stitch, you can see this is where we ended, is right here. We'll go ahead and do a single crochet, put in our stitch marker there, another single crochet, and an invisible decrease. And we'll just repeat that pattern around. So 2 more single crochets and invisible decrease. Okay. Round 6, we're going to do a single crochet invisible decrease around. So first one, single crochet, and then an invisible decrease in the next 2 stitches. Okay. Single crochet, invisible decrease. And just repeat, single crochet, invisible decrease. Repeat that one more time. Okay, and for our last round, we're going to do an invisible decrease all the way around. So we should end with 4 stitches around. So the next stitch, we'll be working an invisible decrease. Another invisible decrease. Third invisible decrease. And last, fourth invisible decrease. Okay, pull through your yarn and fasten it off. We can go ahead and after fastening this off, we can go ahead and stitch that bottom part closed because we'll be stuffing it through the top. Okay, so now that our heart is made, we can go ahead and stuff it. And you want to kind of push that stuffing up into those humps to shape them. And then we'll just go ahead, once it's stuffed to your liking, we'll go ahead and stitch it closed. Okay, and that is our heart. For our flower, we're going to be using our yellow yarn. This is the Premier Parfait Plush in Summer Squash, and we're going to be starting with a magic circle and working 6 single crochets into our magic circle. Okay, after our 6 single crochets, we'll go ahead and pull up our loop just to keep it, and we're going to tighten our magic circle. Here we're going to be doing a color change to our secondary color. So my secondary color that I'm using is a pink. It's the Premier Parfait Plush in the color Bubblegum. To do the color change on our last stitch that we pulled our loop through, we're going to be inserting our hook through the side posts. So you see here, you have the top of your stitch and then these 2 posts right here, the front loop of the stitch and this bottom post. We're going to be inserting our hook through those 2 stitches. There we go. So through those 2 stitches, and take our secondary color, and with our yarn tail facing the back or the wrong side, we're going to grab the yarn and pull it through those 2 loops. Okay. And then we'll start round 3. So for round 3, we'll go ahead and chain 2. We can go ahead and pull our loop from our yellow um, yarn through. So we'll go ahead and pull that yarn till that loop comes through. Those 2 chains from the pink yarn will hold it. So there you go, that's your completed color change. And then we're going to work into this first stitch here, a modified 4 double crochet cluster. So the reason why it's modified is because we're wanting to keep the height of the chain 2. Okay, so we'll go ahead and yarn over our hook, hold our yarn down and insert our hook into that first stitch, yarn over again and pull up a loop. Okay, we should have 3 loops on our hook and we're going to be keeping the height again of that chain 2 space. So when you pull up that loop, make sure you pull it up nice and tall. We're going to yarn over our hook and pull through just the first 2 loops on our hook. There'll be 2 loops left on our hook and we'll repeat that. So yarn over our hook, insert into that same stitch, pull up a loop, keeping that height, yarn over, pull through the first 2 stitches. And we're going to do that a total of 4 times. So we've done 2, we'll do 2 more. Yarn over, insert our hook into that same stitch, pull up a loop, keeping that height, yarn over, pull through the first 2, yarn over, insert our hook again, pull up a loop, keeping that height, yarn over, pull through the first 2 loops, and at the end, we'll have 5 loops on our hook. We'll go ahead and yarn over and pull through all 5 of those loops. Okay, we'll chain 2, and we'll slip stitch into that same stitch that we worked the modified 4 double crochet cluster into. Okay, and that completes our first petal. So we're just going to be repeating that same thing 6 times around to create 6 petals. So we'll chain 2, and into the next stitch, work a modified 4 double crochet cluster into that stitch. So yarn over, insert your hook, pull up your loop, keeping it tall, yarn over, pull through the first 2 loops, and repeat 3 more times. Okay, yarn over, pull through all those loops on your hook, chain 2, and slip stitch back down into that same stitch as before, or as that we worked our modified 4 double crochet cluster into. Okay, we've got 2 petals now. We'll go ahead and chain 2 and do a modified 4 double crochet cluster into the next stitch. Pull through all your loops, chain 2, slip stitch back down into that same stitch, chain 2, and another modified 4 double crochet cluster stitch. Okay, next one, same thing, chain 2 and a modified 4 double crochet cluster stitch into the next stitch. Chain 2 and slip stitch back down into that same stitch. And repeat 2 more times for the next 2 stitches. Okay, so we can just fasten off our yarn ends and tie it back, all the yarn ends back around the backside of the flower. You're not going to see the yarn ends because the backside of the flower will be stitched up against the body of the bunny. So we can just go ahead and hide them back there. If you like to weave in the ends, you definitely can. Okay, and that completes our flower. So you should have your 6 petals around. Okay, for our carrot, we're going to be starting with our orange colored yarn. This one is the Premier Parfait Plush in the color Tangerine. We'll be starting doing a magic circle, and then inside of that magic circle, we'll be working 4 single crochets. Okay, we'll go ahead and pull up our loop, pull our magic circle tight, and start on round 2. For round 2, we'll be doing 1 single crochet in each stitch, so it'll be a total of 4 single crochets around. Making sure to put our stitch marker in our first single crochet to hold our place. And make sure you pop your first row through so that we've got it on the right side of we've got the right side of our work facing us. Okay, we'll go ahead and take out our stitch marker and start on round 3. For round 3, we're just going to be working increases in each stitch around. So 2 single crochets in each stitch, making sure to place our stitch marker back into our first single crochet. After this round, we'll end up with a total of 8 stitches around. Okay. After round 3, this is what we'll be looking like. On to round 4, we're just going to single crochet a stitch in each stitch around. So we'll insert we'll insert 8 single crochets around. For our 5th round, we'll be working in the back loops only. So to do that, here is our front loop, and our back loop, we'll be inserting our hook into the middle and coming up through the back loop of the stitch. And we'll be doing a pattern of single crochet increase. So we'll insert our hook into the next stitch, only grabbing up that back loop and working a single crochet. Place your stitch marker into that first single crochet to hold your place for the beginning of that round. And then into the next stitch, back loop only, we're working an increase. Next stitch, single crochet into the back loop only. And the next one is an increase. And we'll just repeat that around. Okay, so to start round 6, we're going to be doing invisible decreases in each stitch around. So we'll go ahead and insert our hook through the front loops only of the next 2 stitches. So under the front loop only of the next stitch and the front loop only of the next stitch. Pull up your yarn over your hook, and pull through the 2 loops on your hook, and that creates an invisible decrease. Don't forget to put your stitch marker on that first stitch to save your place, and we'll do an invisible decrease into the next stitch. So again, insert your hook through the front loops of the next 2 stitches, pull up a loop, yarn over, and pull through those 2 loops to create that invisible decrease. And we'll just do that all the way around. At the end of this round, you should have 6 stitches. Okay, after this last stitch of round 6, we're going to be changing colors. So this is our green colored yarn. This is the Premier Parfait Plush in the color Seaweed Salad. We're going to be holding our yarn so that our tail faces the wrong side of our work. And we're going to be inserting our hook through the front loop of our last stitch and the post. So if you see here, here's your last stitch, there's your back loop, your front loop, and your post. So you'll just be inserting your hook through that front loop and the post of that last stitch, putting your yarn on your hook and pulling it through to create that color change. Okay, so to begin row 7, we're going to start by chaining 3. And then we can go ahead and pull our orange yarn through. So you can go ahead and pull your orange yarn until your loop comes through and your color change will hold. Okay, so that completes our color change. In our chain 3 space here, we're going to, working in the second chain from the hook, we're going to slip stitch 2. So 1 slip stitch, and then in the next chain, another slip stitch. And then we're going to begin working in our previous round. So round 6, or with our orange yarn, we're going to be doing invisible decreases in each stitch. So taking our hook out or stitch marker out, this is our first stitch here. We're going to be doing an invisible decrease. So we'll just insert our hook through the front loops of those next 2 stitches, pull up a loop, yarn over, and pull through those 2 loops. And that completes our invisible decrease. And then we're just going to repeat that same thing. So we're going to chain 3, working down our chain in the second chain from the hook, we're going to do 2 slip stitches. And then back into round 6, we're going to be doing an invisible decrease. And we'll repeat it one more time. So chain 3, second chain from the hook, do 2 slip stitches. And then an invisible decrease back down in round 6. Okay, we can go ahead and slip stitch to our starting stitch of round 7 and fasten off our yarn. You want to leave a long tail when you fasten off so that you can go ahead and close up your hole and weave in your ends. So we'll go ahead and fasten off all of our yarn, including our color change. And you can even, I like to take that color change yarn and just knot it to the starting tail of the color change yarn of the green yarn, just to kind of give everything that extra, and then we can stuff it down inside of the carrot, and we'll begin stuffing our carrot and whip stitching our hole on top of our carrot closed. So once your carrot is stuffed to your liking, you'll go ahead and just whip stitch that top hole closed. If you pull your leaves down, you can kind of see your stitches down in there, and that's what you're going to be whip stitching through. Hide our yarn inside of our carrot. Pull down through, don't pull too tight. And cut off that ends, tucking into our carrot. And there we go. That completes our carrot for our bunny pattern. Okay, so to do our egg, we're going to start with a primary color. This is the Premier Parfait Chunky Pom Pom in the electric blue. We'll start by doing a magic circle and working 4 single crochets into that magic circle. Okay, once you have your 4 single crochets worked, you can pull up your loop and tighten your magic circle. Starting in round 2, we are going to do increases in each stitch around. So into this first stitch, we'll work 2 single crochets to create that increase, and in each stitch around, we'll just keep doing those increases. At the end of this round, we should have 8 single crochets. And don't forget to put your stitch marker in your first single crochet of your round to keep your place. Okay, this is what we should be looking like at the end of round 2. For round 3, we're just going to be single crocheting in each stitch around. So we'll do 8 single crochets around, making sure to put our stitch marker back into our first stitch of our round. Okay, so after the end of round 3, we'll go ahead and pull up our loop. We're going to be doing a color change. So to do that color change, we'll take our last stitch here and we're going to be inserting our hook down through the front loop of that stitch and the post. So if you can see here, you have your last stitch, your back loop, your front loop, and down here is your post. So you're going to be inserting your hook down through your front loop and the post only. Okay, so it's just those 2 stitches there. We'll take our yarn. This is the Premier Parfait Chunky in the color Bubblegum, holding our tail end on towards the wrong side of our yarn. We'll put it over our hook and just pull it through those 2. And we can begin round 4. So round 4 is going to be a single crochet increase around pattern around. So in the first stitch here, we'll go ahead, insert our hook and do a single crochet. Okay, after our first single crochet, of course, you can put in your stitch marker. You're going to go ahead and pull your primary color yarn through. So that loop that you had from your last round of your primary color, we're going to go ahead and give that a pull, and that color change will hold. Okay? Do not fasten that yarn off because we'll be pulling it back up and working with it again to do another color change. Okay, so our next stitch, we've worked our single crochet for our first stitch of round 4. Our next stitch, we're going to be doing an increase. Next is a single crochet, and then an increase into the next stitch. And we're just going to be repeating that around. Okay, next stitch is that single crochet and an increase into the next. And repeat one more time. Single crochet, increase. Okay, we're going to be doing another color change here. So we'll pull up our loop, insert our hook through our back loop in our post of that last stitch, and pull our primary color back up. Let's go ahead and fasten off that starting piece so that we have it out of the way. This was the yarn from the very start, so let's just go ahead and make that shorter so it's out of the way. Okay, so we're just going to be grabbing our primary color yarn, pulling it up. If you put the secondary color in the back, it makes it a little bit easier here. Okay, pull your primary color up over your hook and pull it through those 2 to make your color change. And we'll be on to round 5. For round 5, it's going to be a single crochet, 2 single crochets, and then an increase. So it's going to be 1 single crochet in the first stitch. We'll go ahead and move our stitch marker up to our first stitch there of that round. Another single crochet into the next stitch, and then an increase into the next. And we'll just be repeating that pattern around. At the end of this round, we should have 16 stitches. Okay, on to round 6. Round 6 is going to be a little bit different. So we're going to be doing an increase into the first stitch and then 7 single crochets afterwards. So our first stitch is going to be an increase. Make sure you place that stitch marker in your first stitch, or your first single crochet of that round, and then 7 single crochets in the next 7 stitches. Okay, next we're going to do another increase into the next stitch, and then 7 more single crochets. Okay. After round 6, we're going to be doing our color change back to our secondary yarn. So we're inserting our hook back through the front loop and the post, pulling up our yarn from our previous color change. So we're pulling up our secondary yarn, putting it over our hook. So make sure your primary yarn is in the back there. That secondary yarn over your hook and pull it through those 2 loops. Okay, and then we'll start on round 7. So round 7 is going to start our decreases. So it's going to be a single crochet and then an invisible decrease. So the first stitch here is a single crochet. We'll go ahead and replace our stitch marker and complete our color change by pulling our yarn through. And then an invisible decrease. So we'll working through the front loops only of the next 2 stitches. We'll insert our hook through the front loop of the first stitch and the front loop of the second stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through those 2 loops to complete our invisible decrease, and we'll repeat that pattern around. So a single crochet in the next stitch, and then an invisible decrease. Oop. In the next stitch, we'll do a single crochet and an invisible decrease. And we'll just keep repeating that all the way around. Okay, our last one, single crochet, and in the last 2 stitches, we're working that invisible decrease. And we'll pull up our loop and do our last color change. So inserting our hook behind that front loop and the post, putting our secondary yarn in the back and pulling up our primary yarn, inserting it over our hook and pulling through those 2 loops, and then starting round 8. So round 8, we're just single crocheting in each stitch around. So you should have 12 single crochets around, or you should have 12 stitches around. So this will be 12 single crochets around. So we're just putting in our stitch marker and completing our color change by pulling that loop through. Okay. Okay. We can go ahead and pull up our loop here. This is where I'd like to stop and just kind of clean up my tails. So you can, I like to just tie the starting tail from our color change and the last tail from our color change together just to make sure they stay. I don't pull it tight because you don't want it to pull your stitches tight, and then we'll just fasten off that secondary yarn, hide the tail ends inside of the egg, and start on our last round. Okay, so our last round is round 9, and we're just going to be doing invisible decreases around. So we'll go ahead and remove our stitch marker, and into the front loops of the next 2 stitches, we'll insert our hook, pull up a loop, and pull a yarn over and pull through those 2 loops. Remember to place your stitch marker back into that first stitch so that you can hold your place, and then we'll work another invisible decrease into the next 2 stitches, and we'll just repeat those invisible decreases around. At the end of this round, we should have 6 stitches, or 6 single crochets total. Okay, we can go ahead and pull up our loop here, leaving a long tail so that we can sew the hole closed and cut off that yarn, pull it through. We'll take out our stitch marker and we'll go ahead and stuff our egg. You can go ahead and stuff it to your liking. I like to make it a fat egg, so I'll stuff it nice and full. Okay, once you have it nice and stuffed, we're just going to grab our yarn needle and go ahead and whip stitch those 6 single crochets from the previous round. We'll go ahead and close those up. So to do that, we're just going to insert our needle from the back to the front of the next stitch, pull it, and just start working our way around into each stitch of the previous round. And just pull it tight as you go. Don't wait till the end to pull it tight, because this yarn, if you're working with chenille yarn, it's harder to pull tight if you wait till the very end. One more. Okay. We'll put our hide our yarn inside of our egg by pulling it through. Not too tight because we don't want to ruin that bottom. And cutting off that yarn. And there it is. There is our Easter egg for our bunny pattern. Okay, so to attach that accessory, we're just going to take the yarn that is the same color as the body, put it on our needle, and we're just going to stitch the back of the carrot to the front of the bunny. So back of the carrot, front of the bunny, and you can put this in whatever position you want. If you want it a little bit down, facing all the way down, sideways, however you'd like it, whichever way you like it. So I'm just going to put it how I have before. And we're going to go back through the back of the bunny, out through the front. One more stitch over, there we go. Pull our yarn through and just go ahead and stitch as many times as you'd like that carrot to your bunny. After you've got it stitched on, you'll just exit where you started, tie off your yarn, and hide your yarn inside of your bunny's body. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for more patterns and tutorials that'll be coming out. Hit that bell so you're notified when they do. And leave a comment below on what you thought about making this Chunky Mr. Bunny pattern. You can always tag me on Instagram at my.rosemarie with your pictures. I love to see your creations, and we'll see you in the next video. Happy crocheting, guys.